All right, so this knife thoughts video is going to be on this knife. And as you can see, this is the Northwoods Knives Hiawatha. And I got this knife as part of a Black Friday sale on Knives Ship Free, who owns the Northwoods brand. They had it, I think, $100 off, down to about $90. And I felt like that was a pretty good deal. And then also I got it in large part because I've had a good number of Northwoods folding knives, but never a Northwoods fixed blade. And I've also never had a knife made by Bark River. And so if we take a look at the knife, I do believe that this knife is made by Bark River. First off, because when this knife first came out, Derek Bone made a video explaining why this knife was made and saying that it was made by Bark River Knives. And it doesn't say that on the product listing currently, that it doesn't explicitly say that it's made by Bark River Knives, but there's a couple things that kind of confirm that belief. So first of all, I don't know that they would change it from the original, production to, being made by a different company. Second of all, one of the things that Bark River Knives are well known for is their convex edges. And that means instead of a flat grind and then a secondary flat ground bevel, it actually has a kind of rounded concave, right? Or I'm sorry, not concave, convex grind here. So it actually comes at an angle, a rounded angle down towards the edge, and then it has the secondary bevel. So it's a little bit different grind than you typically see on most knives in general and also fixed blades, and something that Bark River is known for. So I do think that this knife is made by Bark River, and like I said, I haven't had a knife made by them, so I wanted to try one out. And speaking of the design of this knife, in that video, Derek Bone, who was the founder of Knives Ship Free, unexpectedly passed away, and left a big legacy in the knife world, especially the traditional knife world. Made a video when this was coming out about why it was made, and saying that he was looking for a knife that would fit into a survival kit, like a very small survival kit. And he wanted it to be similar to a Chris Reeve knife, the small skeleton handled Chris Reeve knife. And this knife is designed to be similar. It's not obviously a copy of that knife, but similar and just a little smaller so that it would fit into that kit that he was making. And that's really what this knife is. It is a small, as you can see, skeleton handled, and meaning that there's no scales or covers on the handle. It's a small, kind of basic fixed blade. And it's a classic design. As you can see, it has a really traditional drop point blade. It has a little guard here to protect your fingers, and then a pretty traditional handle shape here with a wider area towards the butt, then kind of curved up towards this guard. And it's a very classic shape. It definitely is something where, if you've seen traditional fixed blades before, this will be a familiar shape to you. And so I was interested in it. Now, one thing, I do like smaller fixed blades like this. So I carry several different ones, but just a couple that I grabbed are the CRKT Minimalist, and then also the Spyderco Reverse. And again, I do carry other small fixed blades. But one thing you'll notice about these two knives is that they're both set up for horizontal carry. And for a smaller fixed blade, I do prefer horizontal carry. Carrying it in the front, what you might call appendix carry if you're talking about firearms. But I do prefer that. It's sometimes called scout carry for knives, but basically carried horizontally on the belt in the front. And I like it because I feel that it's less intrusive. You can move, you can do things without the knife getting in the way, especially when it's a smaller knife. So one thing that I was aware of when I purchased this knife, the Hiawatha, is that it came with a sheath here, And honestly, this is a nicely made sheath. So it's kind of interesting. First of all, it is somewhat set up for neck carry. So these two holes here can be used to make a lanyard to carry the knife on your neck. Now, I am really not a knife neck carrier. I have neck knives that I've switched to horizontal carry. And if I said knife neck there, sorry about that. I think I might have messed that up. But I don't really carry neck knives. I don't like that you have to push it up into the sheath towards your neck to put the knife away. I think that they're hard to get at, especially if you're carrying it under your shirt. And if you're not carrying it under your shirt, it looks kind of silly to carry a knife around your neck, especially a knife that's really any knife, but of this size. So I'm not a knife, boy, I'm getting twisted up on that, neck knife person. Not against it if that's what you're into. I just don't think it's very convenient for me. And so I wasn't interested in carrying this knife that way. Now this sheath also has a belt loop. Now one thing is, I think that this would loosen up and you would be able to use it fine. I haven't carried this knife yet, but it does look pretty tight. Like it might be, depending on the size of your belt, you might have to really kind of push it through there. Now, I think that it would work fine and everything as a belt carry knife, but on a knife this small, I do think I would prefer it to be a horizontal carry. So I had planned to have the person who made this sheath for me make a horizontal carry sheath for this knife. And I just want to, it's not sponsored or anything like that, but I just want to give a quick shout out to Dark Star Gear. So Dark Star Gear is owned and run by a guy who trains at the same Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school that I train and work at. And he makes really nice sheaths, and especially his kind of focus, his main thing is holsters, but his focus is very low profile. So you can see this is a very small sheath. It's just basically only the material you need. And on a small knife that you're going to carry horizontally, I think that would be really good. Okay, so I did plan to get a horizontal carry sheath made for this knife to carry it, the way I prefer. Now, I will say that I don't know that I plan to keep and carry this knife, and for a reason that I somewhat was expecting, but was hoping wasn't the case. Now, on a very small knife like this, my hands I don't have long fingers at all. Actually, they're kind of short, but my hands are very wide. I've got kind of chubby fingers and a wide hand in general. And this knife kind of falls right in a little bit of a dead zone here. So if I hold it kind of just grab it normal, you can see that my pinky is right on that kind of, it is a little rounded, but that butt here of the end of the handle. So it falls right there. And then if I choke down, you can see that I'm getting, a relatively good amount of, again, kind of dead space or empty space there. So it's not really quite the right size handle for my hand. Now, one thing is that you do generally use a knife like this, and I think it would be fine, but I still think that the handle would be a little bit more comfortable for me if either the handle was either longer or this was more of a rounded shape. Has kind of a square and actually almost concave shape to this butt, and I think for me it would make it a lot more comfortable if this was rounded off. Now I could round that off myself, but I just probably don't want to get that intense on modifying a brand new knife. So it doesn't really fit my hand perfectly. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that it does. And then another thing that I did notice here is that these aren't super sharp edges on the corners here of the handle, but they are sharp enough that I think if you were using this knife extended in any extended way, like if you were, I don't know, carving something or something like that, cutting a bunch of cardboard maybe, you might start to feel those edges a little bit. They are, again, somewhat polished or rounded off, but up here towards the guard, which is kind of the place where it matters most, that's where you're going to have a lot of that kind of back and forth while you're cutting. It's relatively sharp, a relatively hard corner. So kind of two things that I maybe would say on that. One is you might want to wrap paracord around the handle. One of the problems with that is that this knife actually sits pretty deep in this sheath, so it probably wouldn't work with this sheath if you wrapped paracord all the way up to the guard. One thing I forgot to mention about the sheath, it is made for neck carry, like I said, but it has a magnet, so hopefully you can see this, but you probably can't see it, but yeah, there you go. So I'm not pushing it in, it's actually pulling it in. It has a magnet. It does seem like a relatively strong magnet, so I think you could neck carry it. I just wouldn't want to. But so you could either put paracord, but then you might have to use a different sheath, or they could have just rounded these off. And I think that probably would have been a better option, just to round these kind of edges a little bit more. As for the rest of the knife, though, it is nicely made. The grind seems nice and thin. Seems like it comes to a nice thin edge there. You can see that kind of convex grind. And then it does, I think it would be a really good all-around, tough knife, because it is relatively thick at the spine, and the tip, as you can see, is not super fine until you get way down to the point. So I don't think you would have to worry about breaking this knife or anything like that. I think this could stand up to pretty much any level of use that you could do with a knife this size. But I do think it would still cut pretty well. I sliced some paper, and it's definitely sharp and slices through the paper fine. I haven't used it otherwise than that because, like I said, with the handle and everything, I'm not 100% sure that this is going to be a long-term keeper for me, but I wanted to try it out. And a big reason why I wanted to try it out was because Northwoods Knives, owned by Knife Ship Free, is well known, very, very well known in the traditional knife community for their pocket knives. So this is the latest release, an Indian River Jack. And they're very, very nice. For the past several years, they've been made by Gradation Cutlery, which is making the best production slip joints available right now. And that's really what Northwoods is in large part, I think, known for. So I wanted to try out one of their fixed blades because they do have a relatively large offering of fixed blades. They have, sporting or outdoor fixed blades like this. They even have some kitchen or, cooking fixed blades. So it's something where I'm interested in checking those out because they seem to be pretty good value, being that they're made in the USA and by good companies like Bark River. So it is something that I wanted to check this out. The price that I got it for, I think, is a steal, and I wish that it fit my hand better because getting a USA-made knife from a very well-respected company like Bark River with CPM S35 VN steel and under a brand that I already am a fan of for $90, I think is a good value. I just really wish that it fit my hand a little bit better. So this is just kind of my thoughts on this knife. It was a great deal on Black Friday. I'm not sure if that deal is still available. Definitely check out Knife Ship Free and see if it is. And also just take a look at these Northwoods fixed blades because I do think they have some really interesting models. And I hope to try more in the future. And again, just one more time, I do wish that this handle fit my hand a little bit better because I really would like to carry this knife horizontal. I think it'd be a great all-around user to have on your belt. So this is the Northwoods Knives Hiawatha from Knife Ship Free, and I believe made by Bark River Knives. Cool little knife, just maybe not perfect for me. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so you see when I post new videos. Check out my social media at Knife Thoughts and my website knifethoughts.com, and don't forget to go out and do good.